As one wise Scottish bloke once said, lads, it's Tottenham. The story of Tottenham Hotspur is complicated, to say the least. Well established in the English Premier League's top 6, state-of-the-art training facilities, debatably the best and most modern football stadium in the world, £332 million in net spend in the last 5 years, a regular in the UEFA Champions League, with some of the best players in the world in recent years: Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, Christian Eriksen, including some of the most successful managers, Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte. So tell me, how has Tottenham Hotspur won only one major trophy in the 21st century? Here is a list of football clubs with the same amount of trophies: Wigan Athletic, Swansea City, Birmingham City, Middlesbrough, Blackburn Rovers, and Portsmouth. 23 years, one major trophy. The Calling Cup back in 2008, 15 years ago, while at the same time being the 9th highest revenue football club in the world. In this video, we will go into the history of Tottenham Hotspur, and while in my opinion, and to many people's opinion, they are the most successful failed football club, we will go into their many failed campaigns on the search for trophies, and go into the reasons why. Tell me your thoughts down below on Tottenham Hotspur. If you're new, then please do subscribe. 70.6% of you who have watched my recent videos are not subscribed, so if you can help me out, then it will mean a lot. And while you're here, let's try to hit 2,500 likes, and let's get straight into it. This video has been supported by the great people over supported my Patreon. The link is down below in the description. If you play FIFA 23 and want to improve your team but not go for the effort of actually playing the game, then make sure to go down below in top of the description to use them and buy. And make sure at checkout to use code Vizeh. Tottenham Hotspur, or actually known as Hotspur Football Club, was formed back in 1882. However, they renamed to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club in 1884 to avoid confusion with another London club also called Hotspur, formed in All Hallows Church in Tottenham in North London. Their first piece of major silverware was 1901, with the FA Cup beating Sheffield United in the final. In 1958 and 1974 they had their glory years, with Bill Nicholson being manager across the entire 16-year period. Across this period, Nicholson won 8 major trophies in his 16 years. Tottenham became the first British team to win a European trophy by winning the 1963 European Cup Winners' Cup, beating Atletico Madrid 5-1 in the final. They then became the first British team to win 2 different European trophies by winning the UEFA Cup back in 1972, and becoming the first team to do the double in the 20th century by winning the First Division and also the 61 FA Cup. It is fair to say that Tottenham were doing very well for themselves, gaining a lot of trophies along the way. However, when Nicholson resigned, they went through a period of decline, being relegated to the second division in 1977. With Birkinshaw in charge, they won 2 more FA Cups and the UEFA Cup in 1984. And like most English football teams, they went in a new commercial direction. This involved in the likes of Alan Sugar taking control in 1991. Tottenham Hotspur gained a reputation for being a technical, creative and high-quality football team, with in the last 2-3 decades seen the likes of David Ginola, Teddy Sheringham, Jurgen Klinsmann, Gareth Bale and Luka Modric, with their last 2 major trophies being in 1999 for the League Cup and in 2008. In 2001, Alan Sugar sold his shareholding in Spurs to NX Sports, run by Joe Lewis and Daniel Levy, owning 85% of the club, and Levy responsible for running the club. And that takes us to where we are now. So just that we are on the same page: 2-time First Division champions, 8-time FA Cup winners, 4-time League Cup winners, 2-time UEFA Cup winners, and 1-time European Cup Winners' Cup winners. With the last time Tottenham Hotspur was champions of England was back in 1961. 6 decades ago. As another wise man, this time Italian and very much bolding, it is the history of the Tottenham. Tottenham Hotspur has got a reputation in world football as being bottle jobs, mentally weak, soft, easily pushed aside. And if you look at the history, is this fair to say? So to give some weight into why I titled this video Tottenham, the most successful failed football club, that is because on every single front, in my opinion, if we speak of revenue, money spent, we speak of players, we speak of facilities, we speak of stadium, we speak of managers, we speak of tradition, and even fan base, Tottenham Hotspur may not be the size of Manchester United or Liverpool, but that is not to say that they are not a big club. They have everything that you need in the last 2-3 decades to kick on and to win more trophies. As if you like it or not, the main currency of football is trophies. That is if you want to be considered a big club, in which Tottenham has got everything that you need to be a big club other than one thing. Yeah, you guessed it. Trophies. The never-ending desire and chase for trophies has been one thing that Tottenham has been demanding and been begging for several years now, and year by year the pressure on getting that first trophy since 2008 gains more importance and gains more pressure. Tottenham Hotspur has maintained a lot of their core team for many years now. That squad being the following: Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, Eric Dyer, Hugo Lloris, and Ben Davies. These are all players that have been regulars in the team since 2016. The obvious example is Harry Kane, Mr. Tottenham himself. Despite his links to Arsenal, even if it is true, does anyone care? Not really. Harry Kane is 29 years of age and has stayed at Tottenham for his entire career, yet has won 0 trophies. Harry Kane this year becoming Tottenham's record goalscorer. The pressure on Harry Kane is similar to the pressure on Tottenham, as they both go hand in hand. As the new era of Tottenham of being a more competitive club has come up at the same time with the introduction of Harry Kane. Since winning the Carling Cup in 2008, Tottenham Hotspur has been in 4 finals, losing all 4. One of them being the Champions League final. And most importantly, the attitude of the players has also been questioned multiple times. With the last 3 managers, the players have had very similar complaints. The place is a regime and they're sick of him. From The Athletic about Mauricio Pochettino. Tottenham players have grown bored and frustrated with Jose Mourinho's methods. Many Tottenham players have now grown tired of impatient Spurs man. Despite all of the money, despite all of the transfers, despite all the facilities, and despite all of the managers, they still seem to go through the same cycle, still never seem to succeed when it really matters. So, let's go all the way back to 2009, when they had back-to-back Cup finals. And the beginning of this journey, Tottenham Hotspur beat Chelsea for the Carling Cup in 2008, and in 2009 they were back in another League Cup final, this time up against Manchester United. In the 12 months between both their final appearances, Spurs had seen a considerable upheaval both on and off the pitch, following departures of both strikers Dimitar Berbatov and Robbie Keane. Harry Redknapp was now the manager, who replaced Juan de Ramos. By the time of the final, Spurs were 14th in the league and were only 2 points off the drop zone. In contrast, Manchester United went into the game 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League, and this was the 09 United side, stacked with Rio Ferdinand, Cristiano Ronaldo, Carlos Tevez, and so on. Even with the unlikely chance that Spurs would win, they still took the game to penalties, with Spurs losing the penalty shootout, with Jamie O'Hara having his attempt saved and David Bentley firing his penalty wide. Things did look on the up, as this was their first back-to-back final appearances in many years. The last time doing so was in 1982. 8th place in Premier League and knocked out by Man United in the FA Cup. 09-10 was another entertaining year for Tottenham Hotspur, qualifying for the Champions League in 4th place, getting knocked out by Manchester United in the Cup, again. Sorry lads. And the combination of Luka Modric and Gareth Bale was growing potential week by week, with the top goal scorer being Jermaine Defoe with 18 goals in the Premier League. However, this season had one very big missed opportunity: the FA Cup semi-final against Portsmouth, as at the time it looked like Tottenham was going to be making back-to-back cup finals in their entire history, losing 2-0 in the final to Portsmouth, with 2 goals coming from Frederick Piccione and Kevin Prince Boateng. The most embarrassing thing about all of this is the fact that this was indeed a relegated Portsmouth side. Despite having to face Chelsea in the final, this was seen as one big opportunity missed. But with top 4 secured and an FA Cup semi-final, it still looked like things were on the up. Did I also mention that this was the first time that Tottenham Hotspur was ever in the Champions League? The 2010-11 season was one very well enjoyed by Tottenham Hotspur fans, for one reason only, was the Champions League. Despite finishing 5th in the Premier League and a 4th round and 3rd round exit in FA Cup and League Cup, they didn't care, due to their quarter-final run in the Champions League, topping their group with 11 points alongside Inter Milan, Twente and Werder Bremen, knocking out AC Milan in the round of 16, 1-0 on aggregate, with a goal from Peter Crouch. However, the quarterfinals was one step too far, as they faced Real Madrid, losing 5-0 on aggregate. Their top goal scorer this year being Raphael van der Vaart, and in the Champions League, top goal scorer being Peter Crouch with 7 goals. Quite impressive. The focus was on the Champions League, and unfortunately, finishing 5th, they missed out on the UCL spots by 6 points behind Arsenal. 2011-12, welcome to the Adebayor season. Manager still Harry Redknapp. It was seen as a success as they finished 4th, therefore in the Champions League. Wait a second. Yeah, they didn't qualify for the Champions League. Chelsea did, who finished 6th. The reason why this happened is because, of course, in the 2011-12 season, Chelsea won the Champions League. Therefore, by the rulebook, pipping Tottenham out of that spot. That has got to hurt. Transfers this year was relatively quite tame, with the likes of Scott Parker and Brad Friedel being the only notable picks. And Adebayor was in on loan. Leaving the club was big striking options in Peter Crouch, Pavlyuchenko and Robbie Keane. They had a chance to make another FA Cup final facing Chelsea in the semi-finals of the FA Cup, sadly losing 5-1. A rather disastrous game, and one that I'm sure Spurs fans may not want to speak about again. In the League Cup, getting knocked out by Stoke City on penalties, which is unfortunate, and not even being able to qualify out of the Europa League group stages, getting knocked out by PAOK and Rubin Kazan. For the most part, this year is relatively quite forgettable. Gareth Bale. For this season, that is all I need to say. This was the season that Gareth Bale became the man that we all knew that he could be, scoring 26 goals in all competitions, 21 in the Premier League. Of their signings was one very big one of Luka Modric to Real Madrid for 33 million, including that a notable sale of Raphael van der Vaart to Hamburg for 10.3. With the Modric money, they brought in some very notable signings that we still see now. This includes Hugo Lloris, Moussa Dembele, Adebayor, Jan Vertonghen, Gylfi Sigurdsson and Clint Dempsey. They brought in some pretty good signings, and under an exciting new Portuguese coach, Andre Villas-Boas. However, despite improving on their team, it still was not enough for top 4, missing out on 1 point just behind of Arsenal. That's gotta hurt. And in the Cups yet again, it was still more frustration, again losing to teams that you would think Tottenham should be able to beat. Norwich 2-1 in the League Cup and Leeds 2-1 in the FA Cup. In the Europa League, they did have some hope. Unbeaten in the group stages, yes they only won 2, but it still counts, knocking out Lyon and Inter Milan, facing a Swiss Basel team in the quarter-final, Tottenham Hotspur had a good chance of maybe winning the Europa League. If you can beat Inter Milan, then you have a good chance here, right? No, they got knocked out on penalties. The 2013-14 season, a very exciting season, and one that with Gareth Bale, they're going to take on very well. Wait, Gareth Bale sold. Yeah, sorry, he got sold. Let's play a game of how many players were spent with the Gareth Bale money. If you forgot, Gareth Bale went to Real Madrid for £85 million. They also sold some other players like Stephen Corker, Clint Dempsey, Scott Parker, Jermaine Defoe, so they made £150 million in one window. They brought in £109 million worth of players, including the following: Paulinho, Nacer Chadli, Soldado, Etienne Capoue, Vlad Krejci, Christian Eriksen and Eric Lamela. Looking back on these signings, which one do you think was the most expensive? You're probably wrong. It was Eric Lamela. And then Soldado. Soldado was worth £26 million. I can't believe they spent that much. When I think of this season, I think of that iconic HP kit. Maybe it's not even iconic, but to me it is, if that matters. Which it doesn't, because I'm not a Spurs fan. In this season, there's not too much to really speak of. A 6th place finish in Premier League, other than the Bale departure, it wasn't too much to really speak of. Knocked out by Arsenal in the FA Cup and knocked out by West Ham in the League Cup. And in the Europa League, knocked out by Benfica in the round of 16. Other than quite a nice kit, in my own personal opinion, not too much to speak of, which is quite a shame as they spent over 100 million of players. 2014-15 will forever be seen as the Harry Kane season, and a year of hope for Tottenham. Harry Kane with a very competitive season with 21 goals out of absolutely nothing. For a reminder, Harry Kane the previous year scored 3 goals in the Premier League. Soldado completely stunk the place out with 32 appearances in Premier League and only 3 goals. Danny Rose, the left back, scored more goals than him. The team did look like it was coming together, with some young players also doing well from midfield, with Nacer Chadli and Christian Eriksen, both scoring 12 goals all season. However, the top 4 yet again just seems too much for them. 6 points off Manchester United. Knocked out of the FA Cup at home to Leicester City in the 4th round, and agonisingly came close for another League Cup, making the final final, a repeat of the 2008 League Cup final. It was against their old enemy yet again in Chelsea. A sense of deja vu. Oh yeah, and there was a new man in town, a certain man called Mauricio Pochettino. Impressing over at Southampton, he got given a big chance in the Premier League. Spurs went into that final as the underdogs, having quite a lot of possession, but sadly still not taking their chances, having 2 shots on target all game. In a game of few chances, Chelsea scored 2 goals, one off John Terry and a own goal. A season summed up in 3 words: inconsistent, potential, and Kane. The one that got away. For many Tottenham fans, they look back on the season with regret, as this was the Leicester Premier League winning season. Very rarely will you see a Premier League year where so many teams that are used to being at the top have a poor season. For the business part of the season, Tottenham Hotspur was second place, and being the main team chasing down the future winners Leicester City. And despite a 7-game winning streak in February and January, they had some great inconsistency near the end of the year. Of their last 11 games of the season, winning 4 times, drawing 4 times, and losing 3 times. And despite it being between Leicester and Tottenham for a large period of time, they somehow finished 3rd place, leading to the common meme saying Tottenham came 3rd in a 2-horse race, finishing behind Arsenal in 3rd. In both the cups, they went out relatively early in the 3rd round and 5th round, Tottenham Hotspur losing at home to Crystal Palace, who went on to actually make it to the FA Cup final, and in the Europa League getting knocked out by Dortmund 5-1 on aggregate. Harry Kane kicked on, scoring 28 goals in all competitions, and Dele Alli also making a good name for himself with 10 goals. And new signing Heung-min Son, that had a inconsistent season. Despite a disappointing end to the year, they still came 3rd in the Premier League, so at least they have the Champions League to look forward to next season. This is the stadium season. One interesting part about the 16-17 season was the introduction of Wembley Stadium. This was the club's final stadium at White Hart Lane, as it was being demolished for the new stadium, and they left old White Hart Lane in some style, going the entire season unbeaten at that stadium in all competitions, playing their home fixtures at White Hart Lane and their home European fixtures at Wembley Stadium. This was another season of hope for Tottenham, finishing 2nd place in the Premier League, 7 points behind Chelsea. With the clubs behind them in Man City and Liverpool still building, Tottenham had a great season with a plus 60 goal difference. However, cup competitions again was frustrating, being knocked out by top 6 opposition yet again, another time being knocked out by Chelsea in the cup, this time 4-2 in the FA Cup semi-final, and 2-1 away at Liverpool in the 4th round. They failed to get out of their Champions League group stages behind Bayer Leverkusen and Monaco, and knocked out in the 1st round of the Europa League by Ghent. Notable signings this year was Moussa Sissoko for £30 million. An incredible year for their attacking talent, with Harry Kane, Dele Alli and Heung-min Son racking up the goals very well, with an incredible 29 goals in one season for Harry Kane. They're building a home fortress, their squad is getting better year by year, and they're getting higher up in the Premier League, from 3rd place to 2nd place. Surely, 1st will be on the horizon. Playing a full season at Wembley Stadium was interesting for Tottenham, as their new stadium was being built. Another big sale of Kyle Walker to Manchester City for £50 million. And with that money, they brought in Davinson Sanchez for £42 million and Lucas Moura for £23 million. Usually when a team plays at a different stadium, they struggle, but with Tottenham Hotspur, they seem to bed in quite well. A comfortable 3rd place finish in the Premier League, no chance of winning the Premier League, as this was the Man City Centurion season. And yet again, they had another failure in the FA Cup semi-final, this time losing 2-1 to Manchester United. Another chance for an FA Cup final, and another chance missed. In the League Cup, losing 3-2 at home to West Ham United. The hopes were high in the Champions League, as they actually topped a group with Real Madrid, getting a 1-1 draw away at Real Madrid and beating them at home 3-1. Very impressive. The hopes were high for Tottenham as they went to Juventus at the round of 16 and drew 2-2 away in Turin. Have to go to Wembley, which they had a great record, and surely would beat them. And they didn't. A 2-1 loss at home to Juventus, and from this came the iconic interview of "It is the history of the Tottenham." To further on that interview, Chiellini says, "We believe in history." Also yesterday, in the game between Real Madrid and PSG, which Real Madrid won, the history is important, and the experience is important. Harry Kane yet again wrapped up more goals in the league with 30, Heung-min Son, Dele Alli and Eriksen being their main providers. At this point in Spurs' history, frustrations was becoming more and more evident, as a decade has gone by without Tottenham winning a single trophy. It was getting more and more desperate. In terms of transfers, there wasn't any. Not a single ounce of business was done in this window, largely due to the reason that they were still building the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And yet again, Harry Kane was their top goal scorer. I'm sure that you're seeing a common trend. Tottenham had a very entertaining start to the year. Tottenham this year maintained in the top 4 for a large chunk of the season, and another season has gone by and Tottenham have failed to get to any cup final. Wait, is that the Champions League? Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League final. How has this happened? I don't know. Tottenham Hotspur was in their first ever Champions League final, despite only being in the competition 6 times in their entire history. Talk about a nosebleed. What makes it even more incredible is that they didn't even win their first 3 games in the group, losing to Inter Milan, Barcelona, and drawing away at PSV Eindhoven. A miraculous comeback leading to an away day at the new camp. A single point was enough for them to finish ahead of Inter Milan. Despite having the same goal difference, Tottenham scored more goals, and they were through to the round of 16, which they faced Borussia Dortmund, and they put them to one side 4-0 on aggregate. But then came Manchester City, which gave us potentially the most incredible Champions League knockout game of all time, which is crazy to say considering this may not even be the most insane knockout game in the Champions League in this season. Despite losing 4-3 away at the Etihad, they won 4-4 on aggregate via away goals. They were in a Champions League semi-final and they had a chance as they faced Ajax, with a relatively youthful team, but of the squad had limited experience, similar to Tottenham Hotspur. A massive opportunity for both teams. With Ajax beating Tottenham in the first leg 1-0, it seemed obvious that Tottenham would fall at the final hurdle like usual, but somehow, someway, Lucas Moura turned into, I don't even know what he turned into. A hat-trick comeback from 2 goals down from Lucas Moura, including a 96th minute winner, booked tickets to the final in Madrid. And who were they up against? Liverpool. Tottenham had bad luck to Liverpool in the league, losing both games to them 2-1. They've gone through over a decade of winning 0 trophies, coming close only a few times. This is their chance. What a great way to repay their fans by not just giving them a trophy, but by giving them the Champions League. This is the moment for Harry Kane. Tottenham went at it in the most Tottenham way potentially ever by conceding a penalty in the first minute. A goal by Salah by 2nd minute of the game, and Origi puts it away for good measure in the 87th. Tottenham so close, yet so far, against a great Liverpool side. However, this may still be seen as a missed opportunity. The manner of the penalty that was given in this game does still rub some Spurs fans the wrong way. However, another season in top 4, semi-finals in the League Cup, and runners-up in Champions League, things were still on the up for Spurs, and next year Pochettino can just go at it again. Yeah, Pochettino got sacked. The first full season at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The season must be normal, right? No, there's also COVID. They signed a few players on big money, like Ndombele from Lyon, for 55 million. 55 million. Yes, I did say that. Steven Bergwijn, Ryan Sessegnon, and Jack Clark. Jack Clark for 10 million? Jesus Christ. Their only notable sale really was Kieran Trippier for £20 million. By the time Poch was sacked, Tottenham found themselves 14th place in the Premier League after drawing at home 1-1 to Sheffield United. They brought in Jose Mourinho. Tottenham Hotspur was ready. They were desperate for trophies. After just being knocked out by Colchester United in the League Cup, yes, I said that right, Colchester United, they brought in a man that was a sure thing to win trophies. Jose Mourinho, the man that has won at every single club that you could imagine. He's a guaranteed trophy magnet. There is no way that this cannot work. After a decent start for Jose Mourinho, however, frustration did come by a sudden knockout in the FA Cup at home to Norwich City on penalties. Another opportunity missed in the domestic cups. In the Champions League, it was also a poor showing. Despite going through the group stages ahead of Olympiacos, which wasn't that hard to do, they got smashed by Bayern Munich 7-2 at home in the group stage. In the round of 16, they faced fellow German opposition RB Leipzig and lost 4-0 on aggregate. The squad still looks very similar to what they had back in 2016, and many of their old guard losing legs season by season. 2021. It is pretty obvious that Tottenham needs to rebuild, so they did that by bringing in some fresh young talent, such as Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale is back at Tottenham on a full season on loan from Real Madrid. Some fresh legs like Reguilon from Real Madrid and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, with the only notable departure is Kyle Walker-Peters and Jan Vertonghen. Of course, during the COVID year, Tottenham were top of the Premier League for 4 game weeks after a relatively good start, but as always, Tottenham happens, finishing 7th place in the Premier League. However, this season can be remembered for one particular moment. Despite being knocked out of the FA Cup 5-4 against Everton, the League Cup, where they had previous success, was on the horizon as they actually knocked out Chelsea for once, 5-4 on penalties in the 4th round. Maybe this was a sign that good things were on their way, as they beat Stoke 3-1 and then beat Brentford 2-0, and suddenly they are in the League Cup final. Despite at the time being 6th in the league and potentially on the way of maybe qualifying in the top 4, Jose Mourinho has got Tottenham Hotspur in a final. His bread and butter. He's finally got them there, and he's got Man City. It is a tough test, but we've seen Jose Mourinho do incredible things. Jose Mourinho got sacked before the final. Actually, to be more specific, 6 days before the final. They lost 1-0. And they were knocked out by Dinamo Zagreb in the Europa League. Harry Kane got top goal scorer though. Tottenham Hotspur, now managed by Nuno, which I might as well say, he got sacked. Despite being manager of the month in the first month, got sacked 2 months later. More signings came in from Emerson, Brian Hill, and Bentancur, with Tony Alderweireld, Mr. Sissoko, and Lamela leaving. This season had the same frustrations yet again. Tottenham Hotspur, missing 2 seasons from the Champions League, finally got themselves back in the top 4, 2 points ahead of their fierce rivals Arsenal, which was seen as a win for Tottenham. They were now managed under Antonio Conte, who just came back from winning Inter Milan the Scudetto, a man with some great experience winning leagues across the entire world, including in Premier League with Chelsea. And yet again, domestically, the cup was on their mind, as they got knocked out by Middlesbrough. What about the League Cup? Well, they knocked out West Ham at home, who could be a bit of a bogey team, and they faced Chelsea. Again, Chelsea knocked out Spurs in the semi-finals of the second leg for what I think is maybe the 4th time already. In this season, Tottenham was in the brand new Europa Conference League, a brand new competition for European football. With some lesser teams from European football, it gives Tottenham a pretty big chance of maybe getting some silverware in Europe and going on a good run. They got knocked out in the group stage. In a group with Stade Rennais, Vitesse and Mura from Slovenia, they lost to Mura 2-1 away, and due to numerous positive COVID-19 tests, they forfeited the last match against Stade Rennais. So it's gone well for Tottenham. And now we are on to the current season, with Tottenham currently 4th place in the Premier League. Despite having what is perceived as quite a poor season, they've been maintaining 4th and 5th place throughout the entire year, never going below 5th throughout the entire campaign. However, at this current period in time, it does seem like Antonio Conte and Tottenham could be separating. This comes from further frustration of another year with no silverware, as they got knocked out by Nottingham Forest 2-0 in the League Cup, knocked out by Sheffield United 1-0 in the FA Cup in very poor circumstances, losing to 2 sides that you would think they should be doing better. They topped their group in the Champions League, a group with Frankfurt, Sporting Club de Portugal and Marseille, and they had AC Milan in the round of 16, which was seen as a favourable tie, and they got knocked out. And we are going to end it with Conte's words after their 3-3 draw against Southampton, saying, "They're used to it here. Don't play for something important. They don't want to play under pressure. They don't want to play under stress. Tottenham's story is this. 20 years, there is the owner, and they never won something." Conte, the current manager, looks like he's trying all he can to get out of the club and maybe get a payday. I've been talking for the last 3-4 hours, and I think by the time I actually go through this all over again, I think I may realise how insane this all sounds. I've gone through 15 years with their hopes and dreams and failed campaigns. Revenue-wise, Tottenham makes a lot of money, and with their new stadium, they can host many events, which brings in a lot of money. Daniel Levy and the group at ENIC, they run the club like a business, and they are genius businessmen, but as a football club, they seem to be losing the fans a bit. In your opinion, do you think that Tottenham will ever win a trophy? I mean, they have to at some stage, right? Their team, on paper, is decent to at least win one trophy. Sometimes things have to come together, right? And we are still waiting for that day to come with Tottenham Hotspur. Tell me down below, what do you think Tottenham has to do to eventually go on and get a trophy? Do you think their chase for silverware could actually be harming them, forcing them to make decisions for the now and not for the future? If you guys did enjoy, then please do smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you guys another time for another video. And stay safe.